Okay, let me just start by saying it's not been a very easy month for me and for those that I hold nearest and dearest, hence the lack of any material. But I'm back today, and I want to start back on my YouTube journey with a response to a guy called Naked Ape, who made a somewhat bombastic video criticising atheists on a number of issues that he just pulled out of his arse. And I came across this video as a result of listening to a hangout that Friended was having with some moron that he knows. And they were talking about this particular video that this guy Naked Ape had made. So I made my way over to Naked Ape's channel. Never been there before. Guy's got about 150,000 subscribers. So I suppose in those terms he's quite big news. But I couldn't find the video there. Disappointingly, I found that I couldn't find the video there because it had been fucking flagged for hate speech. For crying out loud. He says some quite tough things aimed in some cases at some particular individuals, but Jesus Christ, it may well be that the content of that video was sufficient, that technically it contravenes YouTube's rules on hate speech. But if every single video that contravened YouTube's rules on hate speech was flagged and removed from YouTube, we simply wouldn't be able to have some of the conversations that we have. We rely upon a certain amount of good faith here on this section of YouTube that likes to discuss things, that we don't go flagging things unless they're directly calling for physical violence or what have you against people. And this video wasn't doing that. He was calling atheists all the cunts under the sun, right? But that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I can tackle that in this form of a video response. Flagging it doesn't help anybody. End of sermon with regard to that. I'll link you to a mirror of his video. I'll play some clips of his video now. Let's get on with the video, shall we? And I'll tell you some of the objections that I have to what he says.
I can't think of one thing more disgusting, more weak, spineless, and pathetic than the Reddit-loving, upvote brigade, soy boy army that is the modern atheist community. The limp-wristed, mealy-mouthed, two-faced pieces of human garbage that make up your average atheist.
Pretty hyperbolic start from the Naked Ape there. What's interesting is that he talks about atheists as if they're like some kind of really rare commodity, like some kind of rare alpine flower that only grows on the northernmost slopes of one particular mountainside. What a lot of absolute fucking bollocks, at least with regard to Northern Europe. Let me give you the statistics for the UK. I've bored you with these statistics before. I'm going to bore you with them once more. These are the stats. This was a YouGov survey in 2015, very respected survey organisation. Only 32% of those questions said they believe in a God. Tell you what we'll do. If we take the don't knows out the equation, then we get away from this lack of belief in God thing. We're just dealing with those who actively answered the question and said, I do believe there is a God, or chose one of their I don't believe there is a God answers. And what you get is that's 32 then out of 86, which is 37%. So still taking those out the equation, of those that nailed their flag to the mast, 63%, almost 2/3 of the population of the United Kingdom, as far as Naked Ape is concerned, are limp-wristed, mealy-mouthed, two-faced pieces of human garbage. I just ask you to bear that in mind as you listen to everything else he says about atheists throughout the rest of this video, that effectively he's talking about almost 2/3 of the population of the United Kingdom and huge swathes, tens of millions of people across the whole of Northern Europe.
The limp-wristed, mealy-mouthed, two-faced pieces of human garbage that make up your average atheist are nothing less than a civilization-destroying plague of locusts. And as far as plagues go, I'd prefer frogs, locusts, and supervolcanoes.
Or perhaps a plague of giant cunts, then you could just blend into the background.
over the slimy, lard-encrusted pigmen Fedora fucks roaming the wild lands of Western civilization.
So I played you this bit because it's almost like a cross between Keats and somebody with Tourette's. Really, this is what he said. Lard-encrusted pigmen Fedora fucks roaming the wild lands of Western civilization. It's the kind of thing, this is what I don't get. I'm making a response video now. And what happens when you respond to somebody is that you can get caught in the moment. Your heckles can rise and you can end up spewing out a load of expletives that don't really make a lot of sense if you pick them apart. But the kind of video that Naked Ape has made is not that kind of video. He's not making a response to somebody else's material, to something directly that somebody else has said. He's making a video out of fresh cloth. And so I would expect everything he said to make sense and not be absolute fucking gibberish. Pigmen Fedora fucks is just fucking gibberish. Is this the best that you can fucking manage? You've got 150,000 fucking subscribers. This is the best that you can throw. But it gets worse than that, because the one bit that I can actually sort of even analyse is this lard-encrusted idea that atheists are lard-encrusted, that atheists are fat, that atheists are obese. And it just doesn't even fit the evidence. If we look across the wild lands of Western civilization, what we see, and I'll show you the statistics on screen, is that obesity levels are far, far higher in the United States, where religiosity is a lot greater, where belief in God is a lot greater than it is in the United Kingdom, or that it is in Norway, or that it is in Sweden, or that it is in any country that you will find where belief in God is very low. In fact, if you look on that map, head on down, my good friend, to places like Romania, head on down to the Middle East, where the religiosity goes up again. And it's the lard-encrusted fucks are creeping back in there again. So it's not as if your argument is weak, it's that you've got it the wrong way fucking round. You are representing the lard-encrusted fucks, my good man.
At least then we wouldn't die of cuckboy soy overdose.
So let me get this straight. 4 seconds ago you were concerned about atheism leading to obesity, and now 4 seconds later you're concerned about atheism leading to people eating too many soya beans, which, tasteless pap though they may be, have much lower fat content and are probably quite a good way of managing Western obesity. So it just seems as if there's these kind of conflicts going off in your head. And quite frankly, having watched all of your video, I don't think you have the intellectual tools that are required to deal with these conflicts. But what really got me with this was the fact that you were calling people cook boys, right? Now, this is the funny thing, is that if you sounded like Undoomed or something like that, I can buy it. When somebody like that calls somebody a cook, it works, right? But I don't want to be disrespectful, but you sound like a fucking 12-year-old. You sound like a slightly irate fishwife, is what you sound like. I don't know if you've ever watched a program called Fireman Sam in the United Kingdom, but you sound like a character on there called Norman Price. I'll play you a clip of Norman Price. I'll see if anybody can detect a difference between Naked Ape and Norman Price.
Once the King of Dragons has a fire-breathing dragon, I will be the greatest king ever!
Honestly, pal, it just doesn't fucking work when you're calling other people cooks. I don't know what it is about you that makes you special. I don't know how old you are. I'm 46. I don't know what you do for a living. I put fires out and rescue people for a living. But I don't know what you do, but I'm sure what you're doing is a lot less cookish than what I do. It's a lot more alpha male than what I do.
And personally, I feel the same way about moderate atheists as I do about moderate Muslims and moderate Rick and Morty fans. Sorry, but you backed the wrong horse.
So I grant you this bit. It would be strange, would it not, if you, as a theist, did not think that atheists are backing the wrong horse. If you, as a Christian, did not think that Muslims are backing the wrong horse. I will grant you this, but it's a pretty sad fucking indictment of your video that in a video that lasts almost 10.5 minutes, this was the only nugget of common sense that I could find in the whole fucking thing.
There is no God, Summer. You gotta rip that Band-Aid off now. You'll thank me later.
Mom, this cartoon is reinforcing my preconceived notions about life and reality. Mom, this is funny. God isn't real and this is funny.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Come watch TV.
Oh, wow. That's so meaningful. There's such implicit meaning in the idea that life has no meaning. Mom, Rick and Morty is nihilist and so am I, Mom. I'm a nihilist now because of Rick and Morty.
I'm really sorry, Fireman Sam. I didn't know there was going to be a fire.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Your problem with this is, as you state, that atheists are looking for things that confirm their preconceived notions about reality. And that's just something you can't fucking stand, anybody doing that. I looked the statistics up. In the United States, a couple of years ago, the most recent statistics I could find, there were 384,000 congregations just in the United States. 384,000 congregations that are reinforcing Christians' preconceived notions about reality. There are entire channels on the television devoted to Christianity. Not programs, channels of programs devoted to reinforcing Christians' preconceived ideas about reality, and your concern is that ever so occasionally some atheists may watch the odd program that reinforces their preconceived notions about reality. Really? Really, that's your concern? Really, you think that you're the one that should be throwing the fucking missiles on that particular example? You make me fucking laugh, pal. You make me fucking laugh on that one. Okay, so the next section of the video I'm not going to go into in as much detail, because what he then did is he started to look at specific individuals such as TJ Kirk, such as Ahmed Skeptic, such as Jeff Holiday, such as Sargon of Akkad, and that is what he's basing his general conclusions on. Yes, this fucking bright spark here thinks that he can make general conclusions about almost 2/3 of the population of the United Kingdom. But don't forget that they're limp-wristed, mealy-mouthed, two-faced pieces of human garbage on the basis of 4 fucking individuals. It's very much like me making a video just talking about, I don't know, Joel Osteen, Benny Hinn, and Ted Haggard, and then drawing that as a general conclusion with regard to all Christians. But there are a couple of bits of this section that I want to pick out, especially on the bit on TJ Kirk, so we'll go on to those.
The only person who can have opinions is me. You're not my dad, Ben Shapiro. This reaction really does epitomize the apex atheist argument. When Western literature was erased as a requirement for higher learning, you're not my dad, God.
So the claim here is, you are not my dad, God, is, according to you, the apex atheist argument. Jesus Christ. If you had a channel with 150 subscribers making an argument as crap as that, I wonder how you got there. How the fuck did you get to 150,000 subscribers if that is as good as it gets with you? I am mystified. YouTube constantly mystifies me, and you've mystified me more than just about anything I've ever fucking seen. I cannot believe that even people who are most sympathetic to your position won't see that and think, yeah, that's a bit shit, right? That doesn't make any fucking sense. 12 years, roughly, 12 fucking years! Atheists and theists have been debating the finer points of the things that differentiate our positions on YouTube, and you shrink it down to an argument that would have been shit on day one, right? Is that the best that you can manage? Really, is that the best that you can manage?
When Western literature was erased as a requirement for higher learning, "You're not my dad, God." When sexually deviant lifestyle choices and single motherhood were popularized in the culture wars, "You're not my dad, God." When feminists tried to push anti-male bias and normalize child love, "You're not my dad, feminism."
What? I don't think you've even thought this through. That doesn't even make sense, you fucking idiot. Right? Unless you're pro-paedophilia, the example you've given there where you shifted across from the "you're not my dad, God" to "you're not my dad, feminism," and saying that in opposition to paedophilia, well then you're arguing as if these other things would have been goods. And the atheist is opposing moral goods, and so when the atheist is opposing the feminists who are pro-paedophilia, what, you're saying that's a moral good? Pro-paedophilia is a moral good? You see, you've not even fucking thought it through, which is just fucking ridiculous. But let me try and forget about the fact you're too fucking stupid to make an analogy that actually works, and you've made it the wrong fucking way round, right? And try and make the argument that you were trying to make for you. This is what I'm having to deal with. I'm having to make your fucking arguments for you. Which is that somehow, what I think you're trying to say, if you had a fucking 2 brain cells, is that atheism, the rise of secularism, and the fall of conservative religious values have led to more sexual expressiveness and diversity, and to acts of sexual deviancy, which is what you was inferring, and also to a greater level of permissiveness of paedophilia. But that isn't really matched by what we see, is it, right? If you're familiar with what's happened in the last 50 years, or as if you would say it, what happened in the last 50 years, right, what you will see is that whilst we've become more permissive, whilst society has took a softer and softer line with various issues of personal sexual expression, such as homosexuality and various other things, it's took a harder and harder line when it's come to paedophilia. You can't have it both ways, right? If you want atheism to take the blame for the rise of sexual permissiveness in other spheres, because there has been a rise of permissiveness in other spheres as secularism and irreligiosity has risen in the West, absolutely. If you want atheism to take the blame for that, if you see that as negatives and want atheism to take the blame, then you have to give atheism the credit for the fact that we're taking a harder line over paedophilia than we have at any time in the past.
Now, I understand how fun it is to hold people to their own standards, how righteous it is to lambaste child-abusing priests, but at least religious people have standards. The only standards modern atheists have is whatever standard they can use in that moment to shove as many bananas up their fucking ass as possible.
So I understand the banana reference. It's referencing a video by TJ Kirk where he inserted a banana into his anus. I have to say that having researched the subject of sticking bananas up the arse, it is possible for people of all faiths and none, if they practice, if they're prepared to put the effort in, to stick a substantially larger number of bananas into their rectum than TJ managed on that particular occasion. So I didn't really particularly see the relevance of that. But more specifically, and perhaps more seriously, I've never heard a serious theologian ever claim that atheists don't have standards. And this shows the paucity of your video. What an absolute crap show it really is. I've heard these serious theologians claim that perhaps atheists have no philosophical basis upon which to ground the standards that they have, but they all look around there and see that atheists out there in the real world actually do have standards. If you have some evidence to show that atheistic societies are more crime-ridden or treating people people in a worse way, then you bring that to me. All I can see actually is that in the country where I live, we seem to have a more inclusive welfare state. We have a national health system. We seem more interested in taking care of one another than you do actually in the United States, which is a more religious society. Maybe you have some counters for that. I know there's some very wonderful and lovely religious people within the United States, as there are everywhere around the world. But then I never claim that being religious means that you can't have moral standards. It's just you making these stupid, unsubstantiated claims that are based on absolutely nothing.
Who would have thought that endlessly degrading your culture and heritage and proposing a moral relativist system of thought would lead to mass migration, moral degeneracy, and in general, civilizational decay?
Civilizational decay. Oh, you sound so fucking manly, don't you? I'm such a cuck in comparison with you. But tell me about this mass immigration, because most of this mass immigration that I know about, that's the stuff that you're talking about, that's showing a picture about, are people that are from either theocracies involved in religious conflicts or from some of the most religious countries in the world. Do you think that might have something to do with it? It always seems to be the very, very religious societies that people are fleeing from to try and get to these Western societies. So maybe you ought to be asking yourself a few questions about that before you start criticising atheists on these grounds. But I'd actually like you to tell me a little bit more about this civilizational decay, because let me tell you how I see it. I see it that in the West, Christianity has had almost 2,000 fucking years to get its shit together on some of these things, and it hasn't managed to fucking do so. It's still, for almost 2,000 years, been persecuting people for having sex outside of marriage, persecuting people for having been born gay, effectively taking a position that regards sex itself as sinful. Look at the Catholic position, even going as far as the doctrine, of course, the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, that Mary herself must have been immaculately conceived because sex itself is such a terribly sinful fucking act. Christianity has had a real fucking issue with these things, right? So we want to talk about civilizational decay. It seems to me that it's only since Christianity has started to lose its grip on Western societies that we've actually managed to make some progress on some of these issues, that we've stopped persecuting people for having sex outside of marriage, stopped persecuting people for being born gay. Let me tell you a little story, pal. My auntie, in the 1950s, had a baby, right? And such was the social opprobrium of having a baby, having a child outside of wedlock, and such was the societal disapproval that would have been cast upon my father's family as a result of that, that the baby was taken away by the family to preserve the family name, right? And that baby was adopted so as not to cast a shadow over the family in your fucking lovely, loving, conservative, traditional society. Well, I'll tell you something about that conservative society. Fuck that society, because that is what that society did to people, right? So stick that in your fucking pipe and smoke it.
At least atheists have science. Ah, yes, science. At least atheists have their precious science and rationalism.
I claim this in the name of Newtown Museum.
I claim it in the name of Norman Price.
They love the facts, just the facts, of course, with no bias at all, which is why they believe that in order to confront climate change, the fact of climate change, we need to have a powerful one-world government implementing socialist planned economy policies.
I've not met a single person in my life. Not a single person. I told you I'm 46, right? That's a few years of life, not a single person, not a single solitary individual who wants a one world government. You are just making shit up. And you know what that tells me? What that tells me is that actually you have some genuine beliefs and feelings and arguments that underpin what you think, but you're not actually as confident about it as you make out. And so because of that, you have to dress it up. You have this little bolus of arguments that you believe in, but you know that isn't going to sell it to everybody else because it's nowhere near bad enough. It doesn't make the case you want it to make. You really wish it would make the case, but it doesn't. So what you have to do is what people have done over the centuries. Christians used to suffer from this, you know, back in the early days of early Christianity. They were accused of all kinds of monstrous things. Because if people just told the truth about Christians, it wasn't anywhere near bad enough. They had to make Christians seem a lot worse than they actually are. And that's exactly what you were doing all the way through your video, to a point where you just make things up totally, because that's obviously you feel that is the best way that you can progress your position. I just think it's pathetic, 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 pathetic.
If you think that makes you like some kind of internet hero, like you're the next coming of the Four Horsemen, shut the fuck up. Like, that's all I had to say. You're just as bad as atheists who walk around with "I'm an atheist, debate me" shirts. Then you have a fucking ego problem, and you need to take a long, hard look at yourself in the fucking mirror, and your existence on YouTube is tainting the word skepticism just as much as the edgy atheist debate me t-shirt tainted the fucking name of atheist. Okay?
I'm going to wrap up now. I've got to say, right, other than the picture that you showed several times through your video of this large guy in an "I'm an atheist, debate me" t-shirt, I've never seen anybody wear an "I'm an atheist, debate me" t-shirt. So you're saying that has damaged the reputation of atheism, has it? So Christianity can have scandal after scandal after scandal, corruption after corruption after corruption. It's a proselytizing fucking religion. It's a religion that commands its adherents to go out there and try and convert people. It's a religion that sends missions all the way around the world to try and convert people to Christianity. But one fat cunt in a t-shirt, right? One atheist fat cunt in a t-shirt does the same thing. And you're getting your fucking pants in a twist over it. My mind is fucking blown over that. Is that really all you've got to go on? It's just so fucking weak. The mind fucking boggles, pal. Honestly, I said at the beginning of the video, I mean, you can probably tell by now, I wasn't the biggest fan of this video. Right, it was a shit show. You'd spent a lot of time editing all the images. Honestly, clicking delete would have been more trouble than it's worth. It was such a fucking mess. But the hours that you must have spent editing it...
I'm a little upset about it because it was like a month of fucking work. Because, took a while to actually get back into editing and everything.
Trying to polish a fucking turd that was never, ever gonna polish. And honestly, to the people that flagged it, right, I said at the beginning, you're doing us all a disservice. One of the ways in which you're doing us a disservice is I just cannot fathom that anybody could look at this video and see that this is going to be harmful to atheists or atheism. All it's going to be harmful to is the reputation of the twat who's made it, really, because the only thing it actually shows in a bad light is the guy who's made the video, because even people who are on board with the general perspectives that this guy has, a religious conservative perspective, are still going to look at this and think in just the same way that creationist institutions look at some of the arguments that Ken Hovin makes and says, yeah, even by our standards, they're shit arguments, right? This guy is doing the same thing, and people who are largely on board with him are still going to look at this and fucking cringe at it because it's that fucking bad. Why on earth Why would you want to flag this? Why would you want to take this away and untie it from his name? I just don't get that. Okay, do you know what? It feels good to have got that off my chest. It's good to be back. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Bye.